The name Slahoutkin was never used among the people who eventually settled in the area, although the sub-post office bore the name. Falkland is an unincorporated community, located 27 miles northwest of Vernon and 43 miles southeast of Kamloops, in the Columbia-Shuswap Regional District of British Columbia, Canada. Originally populated by Salish tribes, which used the site for food gathering and preparation, the valley became known as Slahoutkin, which translates to meeting of the winds, due to rapid changes in the wind direction. After it became settled by early European pioneers, such as Colonel Falkland.
My name is Denise Rockledge. I'm the treasurer here at the Falkland Historical Society, and we run the Falkland Museum and Heritage Park. And I have lived here since 2009, a longtime resident of Kamloops, so we've been driving through here as kids for years. So the museum was established in 1992 by a group of original settler families. The idea was to preserve the heritage of Falkland and the area. So our history goes from anywhere like late 1800s, because of course people didn't settle here till around 1865. So we go from late 1800s all the way up to current day. So the name Falkland comes from Colonel Falkland Warren. When they were setting up the post office here in Falkland, they needed a name, so they asked him if they could use his name for the post office, and that's how our town came to be. Falkland kind of has a unique climate. We are converged between 3 mountain ranges, so hence the meeting of the winds is why it was called that originally, way back when. So our weather pattern is a little bit different than everyone else. We can have a foot of snow, and the guy down the road in Salmon Arm or in Kamloops can have sun. We have our annual Falkland Stampede, which has been around for 103 years now.
Well, I hope it's going to be here for another 100 years.
Popular for one of the longest running rodeos in Canada, Falkland Stampede, which attracts more than 10,000 people every year, was first held in 1919 in the northwest corner of Townside. Today, it features steer wrestling, calf roping, ladies barrel racing, and riding, among other events.
Mervyn Churchill. I've been here for 81 years, and I first got involved in the Stampede in 1960, and then I took over the management in 1961, and then I stayed there for, well, a total of 31 years, but I was off for a while and then back in again. And, been involved in the community association and the community of Falkland for probably 70 years, as long as anybody's been.
I'm Jason Churchill, obviously his son, but yeah, I was born and raised here, 48 years, spent a few years up north, but for the most part I've been around the area for 45 years. Probably got involved with the rodeo as soon as I was old enough to sell booster buttons or programs, so that kind of evolved into eventually working the strip and shoot and helping in the arena to finally becoming rodeo manager about 20 years ago or so, and I did it for 15 years and finally passed the torch on to my daughter about 4 years ago, I guess. But our family's fairly large, which sometimes was a good thing and sometimes a bit of a bad thing. You couldn't get away with too much when we were kids, because I think I had 7 aunts and uncles that all lived on the same street as me, but it was good. The town was a good place to grow up as a kid, and didn't get into too much trouble, but we had freedom to roam, and I think the rural lifestyle for kids to grow up is, in my opinion, a little better than growing up in the city, but city kids might have a different opinion too. So when it first started, it was a celebration, a picnic to signal the end of World War I, so everybody just got together and somebody brought a horse that nobody could ride, and you guys tried to get on it, and I guess that could be signaled as the very first Falkland Stampede, and the next year they brought a few more, and Then there would be roping events added and continued that way for most of the first 20 or 30 years. Pretty much a North American sport, Canada and the US, but once the Cowboys started getting more organized and prize money was starting to be added, then there was a need for an association to kind of look after that and make rules. Once a professional rodeo association was started in Canada, Falkland right away joined that and became a professional rodeo, and it's been a professional rodeo ever since. Up until COVID, it had been the longest continuously running professional rodeo in Canada, which is something to be said about a town of 500 people. Started managing it, it was just a one-day rodeo, and there's more people and more rodeo contestants, so they made it a two-day rodeo, and that didn't last long, and they had to become a three-day rodeo, and now we're probably one of the longer rodeos in Canada. It runs off in about 3.5 hours.
My grandfather was a blacksmith, and they lived on a little farm up the valley towards Pillar Lake. I lost him probably when I was about 7, but I remember being there and kind of trying to learn from him, but I didn't learn much at that age. But I used to go and stay there, so with him for a while, on the weekends and whatever. Great place to go. Well, I grew up here as a cowboy. I had a horse when I was probably 7 or 8 years old, and I used to go out and chase cattle for ranchers and stuff in the area. And as a cowboy, I won the bull riding in Falkland in 1961, and that was kind of a highlight. Jay and I have both been Committee Men of the Year for Canada over the years. I was inducted into the Pro Rodeo Hall of Fame for producing rodeos. It sure wasn't because I rode bulls, but it was because I had a lot to do with producing rodeo in Canada. And it was quite an honor to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. I guess has been recognized.
Literally being born and raised in this area, you can't talk about Falkland without talking about the Falkland Stampede. It's been very well known. I've been coming to it ever since I was 4 or 5 years old. Well, my name's Dean Robert Tremblay. I have lived in this area for just under 15 years. However, I was born and raised in Vernon, which is only about 31 kilometers down the road to the south. I graduated from high school there, then I did all my post-secondary in Ontario, moved back here, and I became a registered professional biologist for the majority of my career. And then when I moved to Falkland, I got into the television industry, and I ran a production company for 10 years, and I'm kind of semi-retired now, and I'm the local area rep for the regional government now. But it's not just the culture of the rodeo that's the heartbeat. Financially, it's significantly important. It is the largest economic development time for our local businesses. I mean, people come here, they use the restaurants, the hotels, the corner stores, the gas stations. It's a massive influx of money for our local businesses. But also the Falkland District Community Association, which is our local level of government, it's their largest fundraiser. And Falkland's kind of unique in one way that we own our infrastructure. So that community association actually owns the senior center, the community hall, the Stampede grounds. They don't get government support to run that. So it's all raised by events like the Stampede, and the Stampede, probably funds close to 75% of that infrastructure within the town of Falkland. So again, you can't talk about Falkland without talking about the Stampede. I'm the regional director for the Columbia-Shuswap Regional District, which is a regional level. I'm not just the regional director though for the Falkland area. I also represent other communities such as Silver Creek, Ranchero, Garden Lake, and Deep Creek. The main focus on that is services. So it's, planning, sewage, lights, things like that. We work in conjunction with the provincial and federal level of governments to help carry out programs within the area as well. The biggest issue we have, I would say, from the regional governance level is the rural way of life is kind of disappearing. So within the CSRD, we have a lot of cities that sit on the board as well, such as Salmon Arm, Sicamous, Golden. And so what happens is that a lot of the rules that are dictated are more of an urban way of lifestyle, and they get pushed down onto the rural communities. And a lot of the reason people still live in the rural communities or they move to the rural communities is they want that rural way of life. They have the freedoms of living in a small community where you rely more on your neighbor than you do the government. So it's a very difficult job for me to try to maintain that rural lifestyle, but working on a board where most of the votes are for urban type systems. The other issue we have is what we call gentrification, which is we have these small community lifestyles that are made up of old families that have been here for a long time, but we're getting people from Vancouver, Victoria, Prince George, Kelowna that are no longer liking the large city lifestyle and they move to a rural community. However, they want all of the benefits of a urban community in a rural community. So there's this kind of internal division within these communities now where you have the older guard that want to hang on to that true rural lifestyle, but then you have this younger population coming in that wants to have the remoteness and not the big city problems, but they still want to have some of those big city services. So you kind of get this butting of heads. And so as a regional director, that's very tough for me to balance out because I can't just look at one demographic. I have to look at all of them. And so how do you do both of those things to keep the older part of the community that wants that traditional lifestyle alive versus the newer part that still wants to have the traditional lifestyle, but they want to introduce some of those urban components.
The Canadian flag that we have is the second or third biggest in Canada. So the flag idea came from a lady, her name is Fran Nikon. She's an artist and she was from Czechoslovakia. And there was a war going on and she was surprised at the lack of patriotism by Canadians because we tend to be silent. So she decided to start the fundraiser to put the flag up on the mountain, and they did fundraising for years. Raised the $65,000 and with permission of Lafarge put the flag on the hill, and it's been there for over 30 years now. Actually, tourist-wise, there's a lot of hidden attractions in Falkland. We've got hiking, we've got fishing, we've got camping.
Well, it's good to visit Pillar Lake just about any time of the year. My name is Rob Chernankoff. I'm one of the managers here. My wife is the other manager, and we've been here since April 2022. In the winter, there's winter activities. There's cross-country skiing, snowmobiling. Particularly well-liked is the ice fishing. People love to come here. We usually get quite a bit of sun for them to enjoy. And come springtime, when the ice comes off the lake, people come for the early spring fishing for rainbow and kokanee. And it really draws people because this is a generational area where people have been coming for decades. They've brought their great-grandchildren, their grandchildren. It's a very nice community, actually, of people that return to the valley here. So,
my name's Ayun, and Pillar Lake is one of my favorite lakes to go for because it's really beautiful in between mountains, and there's a good mix of kokanee and rainbow trout.
My name is Fabian. We've been coming here for a few years already. We like it here. It's a nice, peaceful little piece of nature. We haven't been very lucky lately, but it's still fun. We get some good time together, and the weather's been awesome. The ice this past years has been very nice. We see more and more people coming and enjoying ice fishing. We see also the conservation officers from time to time, which is a good thing.
Pavlovic is a pretty big lake, and it's always easy to find a spot.
So that we want to make sure that we are safe in the ice. So we do check the conditions every time, and we dig a hole close to shore. We check the other people. We ask the other fishermen to yeah, don't be afraid. Just go out and enjoy the ice and the quietness. And if you're lucky, you might catch fish.
I think what draws people here is the solitude. We're located about 10 miles north of Falkland on the Chase-Falkland Road. And besides the peace and quiet, they can see a lot of wildlife here. There's all sorts of creatures here. People can come and film, and there's bear and deer, moose. We have a golden eagle that comes every couple of years. There's osprey that raise their young here. We have a big nest up on the side of the lake here. All sorts of wildlife that people can come and photograph. Well, prior to 1947, Pillar started. Originally, it used to be a hunting, fishing camp. It was extremely difficult to get in here. I was told by some of the locals that you had to come in by horseback. The roads were just trails here, and people came for very large fish, as we have on the wall. This one here was caught in 1947. There was another one that was on the other side of the lodge that people can see that was taken out of the lake approximately in the mid-70s when they rejuvenated the lake. There was a big problem here with coarse fish. So what they did was they killed the lake off and they restocked it. And now, over the years, every couple of years, they restock it with rainbow and kokanee. And now they're starting to, unfortunately, they're not as big as the one on the wall, but maybe one day. But this is bringing more people in because they like that fact that they could come with their kids and be able to catch fish on a weekend.
Falkland had the largest gyp mine in the world, the 7th largest gyp mine in the world it was, and that brought a lot of people here.
So one of the first industries around here was logging. They started it early 1900s. So the early settlers here, they did mostly logging and mining here. The mining operations started up in the 1920s.
To start with, they broke it all up by hand after they blasted it, and then they had a tram from up the mountain go down across the highway, and they had a crusher there, and then they loaded it on boxcars and shipped it to all over to make gyp rock out of and cement out of. Cement, I think, was the big thing, but it closed down probably around 1959 maybe.
The park itself was built on the old mining grounds. The building that I'm in right now is the original machine shop. There is the old railway chute from the 50s that's out there where they used to truck the gypsum down and dump it onto the train. Before that, back in the 20s, they used to tram it down. So the old hotel used to be the bunkhouses for the people that lived here when it first was going. And today, the mining still happens. They don't truck it off and dump it on the railway chutes here on the property anymore, but they take it directly into Kamloops.
First thing is Falkland is largely reliant on agriculture. So there's a lot of ranches and things like that in the place. And then forestry is another big one. And then, believe it or not, small business, home-based business is a very large component. For as far as business front though, COVID was very hard on us. Entering into COVID, we were thriving. We were having more businesses come in. We had a local restaurant open up in conjunction with the pub and the other restaurant we had. And then all of a sudden, boom, COVID hit. And being a town that is, under 1,000 people, we really rely on tourism. So obviously COVID totally killed tourism. And then on top of that, being a small community as well too, a lot of people were very cautious on going out because we do have a large elderly component. So it pretty much killed our restaurant business. And even though now COVID is somewhat over, our existing ones are having a hard time rebounding, and I think one of them is not going to rebound at all. There's a little bit of silver lining, but I do think that's still going to take us probably 5 to 10 years to recover from the COVID hit.
The community itself has grown quite a bit in the last 35, 40 years since I've moved here. I'm Keith Will. I've lived in this community for 40 years. Moved here before the concept of the community church building was initiated. I used to be a cabinet maker. I have a small farm. I'm an ordained Anglican priest, and I'm president of the society that runs this building.
Irene Mork. I'm the secretary of the Falkland and District Community Church and Fellowship Society. And my husband and I have a small farm. We used to have a big farm in Alberta. And I write books and also do photography for magazines.
History of the church. Quite a few years ago, there was 3 church buildings in Falkland with 3 different denominations, and one denomination had a home church. The Marge Selledy from the United Church had done some delving into paperwork and found out that the congregation owned the property that their church was on, not the larger church body. And so the congregation had the freedom to do what they wanted with the building and property. The idea was put forward to build a large facility to house many denominations when they needed to be, and it would give us a place to have the larger gatherings, like for Christmas Eve, Easter, weddings and funerals that none of the small churches had space for, and also a place for youth groups, meetings, things that would normally be held in the hall, but the hall was far too large for that. It would give that mediocre space and a place for community to get together for worship in a newer, more modern facility. It was dedicated in July of 1987. Downstairs, we've got the pictures of when it was started. It took only a few months to build it.
Some of the wood, windows, doors are from those original churches. Outside is an old door from one of the old churches.
Falkland Community Church and Fellowship Society was initiated. It's a non-profit organization separate from any denomination. What makes it really unique is right from the beginning, this building was purpose-built to be a shared building. It wasn't a second thought out of necessity. It was purpose-built to be shared and to be a multifunctional building.
I should say this building really belongs as part of the life of the community. So many times things have happened here. How grateful we are for all the people who have helped with maintenance and renovations and everything, for their volunteer service. And I also wanted to say, and it used to be very difficult to get people to come to the meetings, but now we've got 15, sometimes 20 people. And we have a good time that's full of laughter and fun and teasing and joking and cooperation. And so many people are cooperating in so many ways to keep this place going. It's been quite amazing.
It's been through a lot of up and downs. We've seen forest fires, floods. So I think for as far as a community, we're going to continue being incredibly resilient and strong. I think the biggest thing that's going to be hitting us is population. The Okanagan Valley's population has been exploding. Vernon's encroaching from one side, Kamloops from the other, and Salmon Arm from the other. More people in the big cities within BC are wanting to move to rural communities. And even in the small time I've been here, I've seen the growth of Falkland, get quite a bit larger than what it was when I first moved here. So I think that's going to be the biggest one, is hanging on to that rural way of living. You know, that we're known as a cowboy town, and it's going to be trying to preserve that and keep this little gem alive, as opposed to just becoming a suburb of some of the bigger towns that are moving in on us. I think that's going to be the biggest challenge. One of the main reasons I even moved here, 15 years ago, is Falkland has still really hung on to that small community lifestyle where everybody says hi to each other, everybody gets to know each other. So it's very safe. I did raise my kids here, and I think it's an awesome place to have a family. It kind of teaches you the benefit of neighbors and the meaning of community. And I think that's why we are seeing an influx. People are getting tired of the big cities. You know, there's crime, there's gang crime. You know, you turn on the news, you can't find anything nice that's going on. And then they come here and, you know, all of a sudden there's a whole bunch of nonprofits that want them involved. You know, everything is about family. And we work together to run the community. And that is the unique part of Falkland, is the citizens are the ones that own everything. We're the ones that do all of our own festivals. We do all of our own get-togethers, and we take care of all of our own community hall and buildings. It's a true meaning of community, and I think people have lost that.